Putin, through his press office today, demanded that the parties, United States and Israel, uh, stop all hostilities. He chided them for their brazen act of aggression towards the Iranians, and he also offered himself up as a mediator to that they should come to the negotiating table, and that Vladimir Putin offered his services to help negotiate an end to the hostilities. What can you do? You just say, "Sir, you are unparalleled. You have your hands deep into the United States government at the very highest level. You have your hand at least halfway into the government in Israel, and you've been working with hand in glove with the Iranians, hand in hammer and sickle with the Iranians for 25 years going back. And as we just spoke about the other day, he signed a new 20-year memorandum of understanding to carry forth. When interviewed yesterday or the day before, he went to great pains to tell the press pool that the agreement was not military. It was in banking and in commerce and other things, of course, because why would Vladimir Putin be interested in buying and selling arms with another country, that the one that supplies him with all of the drones that he needs to keep his war of aggression going against Ukraine. So this is your boy. He never lets us down. At every turn, he has a new and creative way to troll the world community. Where does he find the time? How can you find the time to insert joy on the field of battle and have a little wry, appropriate Russian smirk at the same time? It's really remarkable. So I'm giving some you know, sir. What can we say? We're speechless. At the same time, there have been spearfishing, which of course is it's a a tool, a weapon of war in the information wars and in espionage and in sowing discontent amongst adversaries and agents alike. So Putin, what he does with his very able team, and he did this going back to 2014 in the United States, but has done it in 36 other countries over the years. I mean, he doesn't limit his attention to the big dogs. He isn't just messing with US politics. He's, as we talked about, he is intimately involved in German and French politics and the UK as well right now, because there are some very important elections coming up, and he wants to do his best to steer them against the 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 governments, the liberal interests that are governing those countries right now. And he wants to make sure that's not a loyalty to the white Christian nationalists or other such folks any more than it is here in the United States. What he wants is he wants people getting hating each other, getting at other's throats, fighting amongst, he wants dissension, right? Because that serves his purpose. While people are fighting with each other, then he gets to carry on and do his thing, which is moving on to the next country, the next election. And he's that's how, besides being, as I will continue to argue until he is in a box, I would say Putin is, conservatively, he's one of the three most wealthy individuals in the world. It's hard to argue with your boy Elon, because he's stacking cash so quickly that it's almost hard to keep up with. But there isn't it comforting to know that they're aligned in so many ways? Uh, Big fans of Nazis, which is, talk about a heartwarming, unifying theme, right? So you have Putin supporting the AfD and Rally and in France, and Nigel Farage in UK, right? And the one, I'll keep this short tonight, but the one interesting, keep keep one eye open on the upcoming elections in Hungary, which it's they don't vote for a president; it's a parliamentary system. Viktor Orban. There was a time a few weeks ago when the average of the more reliable polls, and the polls and the data available in Hungary is even less reliable than it is in the United States and other places. But his Viktor Orban's challenger, Mr. Mygar, Magyar, Meyga. His that name is excuse me, Magyar, right? Magyar is the name of the opponent, the politician, but it's also, I think, either in Hungarian, a term for Hungarians, or in Slav, in Czech, Slovak. Yeah, it's a name for a people. It's like it doesn't mean that a guy named French with the last name French, like the legal expert that you see on perhaps on this platform, David French, who writes for the New York Times. It doesn't mean that he's French, and in fact, he's not. Mygar, the last name, is kind of like saying Harry Hungry. But that's our the most the most effective opponent that Victor has faced in a long time. He was leading by, in some polls, 15% just a few weeks ago, but it's narrowing. And not coincidentally, Vladimir Putin has tasked a team of GRU agents. The Russian state security now these days is basically broken into three parts. It's domestic, foreign intelligence, and the GRU, which is the military intelligence. And they're the real bad guys. The GRU are the hard hitting types that are within the GRU is the Spetsnaz, right? Which is the Russian special forces. That's the equivalent of the SEAL teams or Green Beret, and they fall under the control of the GRU, and they use them liberally. And the GRU has a long track record of involving themselves in trials and tribulations across the globe. They're they're the hard guys. They're the people that, let's go in and try to do this the easy way. But if not, we'll leave a few bodies, and they'll get the message, and things will, people will pack up and go home, because that's the kind of guys they are. So that's why they are the top of the pops when it comes to Vladimir Putin. They kind of have the most favored nation status within the Russian state security. And so they've already gone in. The election, it's right around the middle Yeah, the elections are right around our tax day, so middle of April, coming up pretty soon. And I'm I haven't looked at the at that poly market to see what the odds are uh, on Viktor Orban keeping his seat, but you gotta like his chances if they're loading in the Russian state security in such a way that it's almost transparent, you know. Then that well, it showed his intent. Does that mean that that Putin's nervous? No, this was not a snap election. This was planned, right? So he's just doing what he does, and as we discussed before, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin lost an election for 5 years ago now in the United States. They won the time before. They lost the last one, which they were not planning on losing because they were putting plenty of assets into defeating Biden. It was it was a close thing. They're all close these days, right? Uh, uh, if Trump wins, then it's a landslide. If he loses, obviously it was a close margin because that's the kind of guy he is. But in any case, I just wanted to again give a little Putin appreciation. Keep an eye on Hungary because that the the extent to which during in war times, right, as soon as things wrap up in Iran, how much time is going to elapse between then and operations in Cuba? I don't know. I would, there's an argument from a United States midterm election perspective that if Trump wants to solidify the South Florida Cuban vote for Trump's not on the ballot, but he's always on the ballot as long as he's still alive and upright. So he's going to try to turn out the Cuban vote, the the part of the Venezuelan vote that is still loyal to him. That gives him credit for clipping, not clipping, but for snatching Maduro and his wife, and think that that's going to make things better in the 5 to 10 years in Venezuela going forward. That's remains to be seen in Cuba with the with Viceroy Marco Rubio. How is that going to go? How long? What is the gap between end of hostilities in Iran and the beginning of hostilities in Cuba? You know, s- strategists will say that maybe Trump will get the most bang for the buck. Many states have early voting. So when is the ideal third show of force and seemingly in the same week, it feels like, in Venezuela, Iran, and in Cuba? And isn't it delightful that in our what was our once proud democratic system that we're talking about the president of the United States using armed conflict to manipulate votes without any concern whatsoever for the loss of life on our side or otherwise. We mourn the loss of the impossibly young members of our military that were stationed in an un in a not properly reinforced trailer in the middle of Kuwait, who they were statisticians, logicians, they were admin people, military, no shade. but they were doing the admin stuff, and they paid with their lives, and one of them 20 years old, right? So we have to give grace to those families that sacrificed for our country, but we also have to be highly critical of the decisions that put them in harm's way and what kind of preparation was that. Oh no, we couldn't have reinforced the trailer park because that would have given it away. They would have known that we were coming. Trump has been talking about rushing into Tehran for how long, right? If you can't reinforce where you got them, then pull them the fuck out. Put them somewhere else. Put them in the Ritz Carlton in Kuwait. Whatever, you know. Smart, that's any of the excuses that you hear coming out of the Trump administration are reprehensible. The Pistol Pete Hegseth BS that just keeps rolling out. It's sad because again, I'm an older guy, and to see 20-year-olds that haven't had the chance to even perhaps begin a family, haven't had a full life, and they were just there doing their job for their country. So we have to support them. We have to support our country. But then, in lieu of any responsible behavior from anybody on the Republican side in the House or Senate, we have to also stand up and make sure that our voices are heard loud and clear, and ask the difficult questions. So yeah, so that's we'll keep it short for tonight. That is how can where does the hammer and the sickle, that's the old Russian flag for you kids out there, that where does Putin find the time to have a wry smile, a little bit of trolling, to call everybody out for their acts of aggression, their reprehensible acts of aggression, and that he will uh, be pleased to hold mediation and make everybody happy again, so he could keep the money coming in. And with the oil prices hitting what they did again today, it's my back of the envelope calculations that by tomorrow, Vladimir Putin will have been a billionaire one more time again, just in the last week. You know, uh, uh, with very little help from the futures market, but we know how. He's been doing this shit for a long time. He has a strong hand in OPEC plus. He influences wastrels and others in that group. And he's fearless and knows how to play them. I mean, that's in his bones. He's a manipulator and very good at his job. So, thank you guys, and we will catch up with you sometime over the weekend. Stay safe, and we will wishing you a beautiful night. Thank you very much.